A good example of this in Canada, to return to that.
Yeah.
You know,
Is he going to win? It seems like he's
the polls
favored.
certainly indicate that.
Yeah.
And maybe with a majority government. And I can see why. Canadians were accustomed to having everything go pretty well. And we could be morally superior to you Americans, because that was also fun. And we'll never forego that opportunity. And Trump has provided it in spades in the last month. So we look at Carney, and we don't pay any attention to politics, and we certainly don't read his goddamn book. And so we see someone who looks like a banker from the 1990s, when everything was just fine in Canada and Canadians were just as rich as Americans and the whole country was stable and peaceful. And we think, well, you know, we kind of made a mistake on Justin. Turned out he was a little incompetent, a little narcissistic. And maybe we shouldn't have voted for him just because he legalized marijuana, because that's actually what brought him into power the first time. And so we kind of made a mistake. But now, look, we've learned, and we're not going to be fooled by narcissistic pretenders. And Mark Carney used to be Governor of Bank of England, you know, and that's pretty good. That's a pretty good resume, and it certainly looks like that. And yet, he believes that 75% of the fossil fuels in the world should be left in the ground, and that there's nothing that should guide your purchasing decision by force other than decarbonization.
But it seemed to me, at least from an observer from afar, that Pierre was gaining steam, and it looked like he was going to win.
Oh,
and they seem to have taken the wind right out of his sails.
Well, two things happened. Trudeau resigned. Oh, yeah, the Liberals were headed for extinction. It was going to be the worst defeat of a governing party in Canada ever. They might have lost their official party status. So they were done. Well, they pivoted, brought in Carney, who'd been advising Trudeau. He's put himself up as an outsider, a competent outsider, a lot of private experience in the private domain, you know, a steady hand at the helm. It's like, you were Trudeau's economic advisor for 10 years. 10 years. And there's going to be more of the same under you. And now you're pretending to be an industrialist, even though you're one of the leaders, the world's leading authorities on DEI, ESG, and net zero. That's Mark Carney. All you have to do is read his book, which people don't, of course, because it's a book. You know, first 3 chapters will do the trick. Well, now, either he's decided that every single thing he ever believed was wrong right to the core and hasn't apologized or let anyone know that, and now he's actually Mr. Industry, which is how he's presenting himself to Canadians, or he believes what he's always believed.
Or he's a wolf wearing grandma's dress.
Yeah, he's a benevolent wolf. Well, that's why the wolf wears grandma's dress, isn't it? It's like, there's no one nicer than me.
So how does Canada correct course?
Well, people either correct course by waking up or by experiencing severe pain. And it looks to me like we've chosen the severe pain route. You know, we already make 60 cents. We already produce 60 cents to every dollar you Americans produce, even though we were at parity 10 years ago. And so after 4 more years of Carney, we could easily have that down to 50 cents. Spiraling housing prices, a lot of social instability in Canada, especially since after October 7th.
Do you think that's
all my Jewish friends in Toronto are terrified.
Yeah.
That's not fun. I don't like seeing that.
No.
It's awful. It's awful. And all those psychopaths who've been parading around their moral virtues since October 7th, they're plenty emboldened. Plenty.
Yeah.
Plenty. I know, I'll give you a little example of Canada. So we had the English leadership debate a week ago. And the powers that be, who organized the debate, the legacy media types, with CBC radically involved, couldn't figure out how to exclude rebel media. You know, that right-wing news, kind of tabloidy news group from Canada, Ezra Levant, who's been buzzing about for 10 years, causing trouble like a right-wing tabloid journalist, which is what he is. Well, they didn't want him in the press scrum for the leaders after the debate. So they canceled it. They canceled the journalists' interviews of the 4 leading contenders for Prime Minister in Canada because some right-wing tabloid journalists, they've had a newspaper or a media empire for 10 years. I don't care what you think of it. It's not the point. The point is they canceled They canceled the journalist scrum after the English language debate.
That's so
and
fascinating.
no one complained.
But that doesn't even make sense. Like, if you're a presidential candidate and you're or prime minister candidate and you're encountering someone that has an opposing perspective, you should have really good answers. That's it.
Oh, look, if your guy's leading, why ask questions? That's the legacy media in Canada. It's the CBC.
Right.
It's state funded, right? Right to the core.
Right.
1.4 billion. Think about this, Joe. This is our bloody state media. It's so funny. $1.4 billion in direct government subsidy and $600 million in federal advertising per year. $2 billion. Go to the CBC website on YouTube. You look at their last 20 videos. I'll guarantee that not a single one of them has more than 200 views. Right, which means the people who made the video clips didn't watch them. Right. That's what you get for $2 billion. Now, everyone in Canada who's older than 55 watches legacy media.
Right.
And Poilievre said he'd defund the CBC. So you can imagine they're not exactly covering him in a positive way.
I watched the debate where he kept getting talked over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jagmeet Singh.
Fascinating.
He's such fun with his pink turban.
Yeah.
He's such a fashion icon. Luckily, he's going to lose his own seat and his party's going to be devastated. That's the socialists. They're going to be devastated so badly that they won't have official party status.
But it's incredible to watch that in Canada, where I've always thought at least your discourse is much more polite.
Yeah, was. Yeah. No, we've got there's a lot of mopping up to do in Canada. Well, in the country. And you know, the man who started the Reform Party in Canada, so that was the populist end of the Conservative movement 20 years ago, maybe a little longer, eventually reunited with the Conservatives. Preston Manning, son of an Alberta premier. He was premier of Alberta for like 40 years. He wrote an article in the Globe and Mail, which was it's the Canadian liberal establishment newspaper. And I mean liberal by the classic, old school, small L liberal, centrist sort of newspaper, saying that Manitoba, Alberta, and Saskatchewan should have an immediate constitutional convention immediately on Carney's ascension to the throne. And Quebec doesn't want pipelines traversing its territory. And Quebec, I don't know if you noticed this, but one of the participants in the debate was a Canadian separatist. We literally have a Canadian federal party, localized in Quebec, whose stated intent is to break up the country.
Hasn't that always been the case with Quebec, though?
For a good while, it was provincial, right? I mean, they had a provincial party, like a state party, right? Okay, fair enough. Have your state separatist party. It's for your state. Oh, no, we want to have a national party. We want to be represented in the House of Commons as separatists.
Oof.
Yeah, so the country's it's very sad. And I was hoping...
They could be the 51st state.
Yeah, that's what happened. So two things.
Yes,
back to that.
That was the big one.
Carney showed up just in the nick of time to save the burning damsel from the train tracks or whatever the hell it is. And
the rhetoric.
And then Trump. He just timed it so badly. And
yeah.
He didn't know what it would do. He didn't know. But that's also...
How do you not know that people have national pride?
Yeah, he knew that, but he didn't know what the electoral consequences would be. He didn't know that would shift them to the Liberals so radically. And he's going to pay for that because once Carney is elected, if that happens, Trump will not have a more seasoned enemy in the West.
Boy.
Right? Carney's very well connected. Very. Especially in Europe and the UK. Very well. So, and
Europe and the UK is a mess.
Yeah, you might say that. Mess. Oh, that's for sure.
We've highlighted all the arrests in the UK over social media posts, and most people have no idea. Konstantin Kisin is